Still working? Hey,
Here we go.
lift off.
Good evening, everybody. This is Steve Eccles, Vice President, unfashionably late due to some technical hitches, not to do with the multiple bottles of wine behind me. Welcome to the Vice President Question Time. This is your chance to view and hear from the two Vice President candidates that we've got this year, Mr. John Clark and Mr. Pete Biggins, who are looking for you to vote for them to be the next Vice President of RTBI. So we've got about an hour. I've had a number of questions from tablers up and down the country, some really great questions that will test these guys and really just to try and tease out their motivations for why they want to be the next president of RTBI. So I'm just going to invite them both up to give a quick introduction of who they are, their table experience and their highlights, and a little bit about their motivations of why they want to be the next vice president. So in alphabetical order, I'm going to start with Mr. Peter Biggins. Here he comes.
Hello.
Hi, Pete. How are you?
Hi. Hi, I'm here. How are you, Steve?
Yeah, really, really well, really well. Sorry to keep you waiting with the usual.
That's okay.
Back in the day with COVID, we were all great with Zoom, and clearly I've lost my abilities. So, Pete, if you just want to
It does great things for the nerves, sitting waiting at a blank screen for an extra half hour. It doesn't. It helps a lot.
So, Pete, if you could just give a quick introduction for any of the guys either watching live or watching back, just about why you're standing for this role.
Absolutely. Hi, guys. I'm Pete Biggins. I am a founder member, if you like, of the rechartered Newport 15, which is when I joined Table a few years ago. I've been area chairman of Area 4 this year. I've since, as part of that, been invited to be a dual member of Cardiff 26, which I am now, and also a member on the sidelines of Pontypridd and Rhondda 972, helping them build their club back up from just two members. They were really struggling, and the two of them, last time I think they sort of hit the wall a bit. And so, with the help of Lee from National, our new membership guy, as well, we've sort of got them up and running, and we're doing good things with them. I love Roundtable. It's done a lot for me. It's got me through some very tough times. I lost my dad just before I joined. Bumped into a 41er on a coach to London. Spent a 4-hour journey with him, being told about Roundtable and how I should go along. I did, and I've never missed anything since. Like I said, it's helped me through an awful lot. I just want to put in as much as I possibly can before I age out in a few years' time, and get as much out as I can and put everything I can back into it, and just take every opportunity. Ever since I lost my dad, I decided life was too short, and that was it. Do everything, say yes to everything. And I've always been one to do things for other people. My mum, in fact, tells me off most of the time for not putting myself first enough, but that's just how I am. I'd rather do things for other people, and so I love the charity side as well. And I just want to do everything I possibly can. And actually, one of the reasons, this will sound a bit weird now because you're right in front of me, but one of the reasons I did run this year is because I'd like to work with you, Steve, because I believe in everything that you've got on that 3-year plan. I think we're going in the right direction already. We've already exceeded some of the targets, and I've got a few good ideas, I think, of things we could also add to that, because we're already ahead of the targets. There's nothing to say we can't add things and adapt the plan a bit more and keep pushing us further. So yeah, that's what I'd like to do, and try and get some younger members in. As a teacher who works with excluded teenagers, I see sort of mental health struggles that they have and young people, and I think we should be in a position to help with that. So that's something I really like to push forward.
Great. Thanks, Pete. I'll just ask you to quickly turn off your camera, and I'll invite Mr.
Absolutely.
To join us. Hi, John. How are you?
Evening. How are we doing? Yeah, very good. Thank you. Seems like
Good.
only yesterday we were doing this last year. So
I know it does. I'm on the other side of the lens. John, so just same question to you, really. Just give a quick overview, who you are, your motivations, and some of your experiences in table.
yeah, no problem. Gents, good evening. John Clark, London West End Roundtable 623, Dartford and Gravesham Roundtable 143. Been in table now for 10 years. Served the association a number of different ways. I've done table chairman, area chairman, national councillor. I was your national IRO from 2018 to 2020, and then I served on the RTI board as CEE chairman from 2020 to 21. So I've served the organisation at all levels now, and I think the one thing that I want to do, I took some time out, obviously, after last time I did the CEE chair, and the one thing I sort of thought about was I can make a huge difference, and I believe I can make a huge difference, and I believe I can be the right person to lead our association forward into the next chapter. I think if you look at the work we've done this year as an association, it's been an incredible achievement, and that's testament to not only the national board but the members as well. I think we have to acknowledge that to have growth in our association for the first time in a number of years, it is a massive achievement, and we are ahead of schedule on that plan. I think for me, there's a lot of credence in the member survey that we've just undertaken, which is obviously by you. It's your responses, and I think there's a big element of what we need to do is about delivery. So there is a plan in place. We need to deliver on that plan. I fully intend to deliver on that plan, and I think continue the momentum is the main thing. We cannot let that momentum go. It's taken us this long to get that momentum. We now need to make sure we carry it on through. Having started London West End Roundtable in 2019, that is now 5 years old. I know the trials and tribulations, the issues of getting a table running, particularly in a city, which poses its own challenges. And I also have the experience of non-city tabling, as it were, with Gillingham 75 and Dartford 143, my two previous tables. So I think that experience, those ideas, thoughts, what works, what doesn't work, I think are really important skills to have. I think the big thing for me is giving people the opportunity to experience Roundtable. We've all had Roundtable in our lives, and it's a wonderful thing. It's changed my life, and being able to have the gift of Roundtable and offer that to everybody else is something I'm really keen to do. So I think for me, going through a phase of continuing to grow our existing tables using people, and also growing new tables in a targeted, strategic way, being very smart about where we can feasibly grow tables, I think is also equally important. So we can grow our network and give the gift of Roundtable to as many young men around the country. We are one of the most relevant organisations out there at the moment, and I think for me, it's making sure people are aware that there is a place for them out here. I had a conversation with somebody yesterday, and for me, I think Roundtable is hugely relevant in our society and for young men today, and I think we need to make sure that gift is there for everybody. And you're still on mute, Steve, sorry.
Look, second schoolboy error from a post-COVID world where we were all experts on Zoom. So John, that's great. Thank you for that overview of your motivation. So Pete, I've just asked you to turn your camera back on, and I've had a number of questions that have come in over the course of the week, and also things that people are firing at me now. So I'll just really start with one thing, and you both touched on it there. Obviously, this year I think the focus of the national board has been to try and change the narrative somewhat in terms of roundtable and modernise. And you know, my strapline was obviously around transforming traditions and empowering change and get members talking. So obviously one of the key things that we launched this year was the 3-year plan, which was the culmination of working with members, with the National Council, the board, etc. What do you think the sort of, if I suspect that not all members across the UK have read that 3-year plan, but for those that haven't read it, what do you think the real key themes from that are? So I'll start with you, John. How would you summarise that to members?
Yeah, thanks, Steve. I think the theme is, in general, we're doing a lot of good stuff, and I think there is a lot of good things we are doing, and I think there's a push now to just almost just do a little bit of a reality check on what we've got at the moment. I think it's probably fair to say, because if you look at some of the things that have been talked about in the in there about, you know, introductions, well-being, looking at kind of how we're, you know, our rule book, all of our rules, all almost things like our aims and objects, because our aims and objects are wonderful and they do resonate in terms of what we do and what we are as an association. But you know, they were written 100 years ago, and it does, you know, do we need to transform that tradition? I don't think we're doing anything wrong per se. I think it's more just having a look at what we're doing and basically sticking with our motto of adopt, adapt, and improve, and take those core beliefs and just kind of put them into play. I think if we can do that, I think, you know, we're doing a lot of it will be a really strong message for us. I think some of the big ones that I've seen are things like talking about things like, you know, regalia. Swag is a big one that I've seen that's come up in the last few weeks, and I think there's some particularly strong views on that, and I think again that's something we need to look at. I think things like the chair and the vice chairman weekends we've done have been a great success in kind of bringing everybody together in that communication link. So, you know, I think there's a lot of great stuff in there. For me, I think as I say, we're going to deliver as much of that as possible. Be that myself or Pete. I think I'm very suited to delivering a lot of those things because a lot of them kind of suit my skill set very well. So yeah, I think that's it for me. It's, you know, we're doing well, we're hitting a lot of the right things, but I think it's now about how we make the association fit for the future and relevant to a future society and a future generation, because we have to remember, as three tablers here, we're sort of at the middle to the end of our table careers. We are obviously,
yeah.
well, you know,
speak for yourself, John.
We're all
okay.
Okay. Let's put it this way: we're all over the average age of tablers. Is that the best way to put it? There we go. So if we look at it like that, we have to look at how we are going to attract the younger generation of tablers.
Yeah.
And that generation has changed significantly, and they are different in their approach to how our generation is. So it's how we appeal ourselves to that generation, I think, is going to be very critical in the next kind of 2 to 3 years.
Great. So Pete, I mean, same question to you, really, just to reiterate. I mean, obviously this is setting a plan for the future and over a slightly longer period than the 1-yearisms we always talk about. You know, how would you summarize the key themes from that for those that haven't read the 3-year plan?
Well, I think, like John said, I think it's about bringing the association further into the 21st century. Really, it's just bringing it in line with what the modern society expects and what modern young men need, and working more with the ladies' circle to make sure that they're getting the same benefit as well, because, you know, it's about everybody. I think one of the main things I took out of it was sort of, I would call it reaching out, with the board being more approachable, perhaps more involved, reaching out to local tables, and rather than being that sort of like, you know, castle up on the hill sort of thing, that you get out and get more involved with local tables, reaching out, offering more support, that sort of thing, and just, yeah, basically trying to bring the table age down a bit, get new members in. As I say, I work with young people. I can see the sort of things that they're looking to do, their sort of hopes and things for the future, and I can see how much they all benefit from being in Roundtable as they get to the right age. You know, they're only a couple of years away from it. They're all 15, 16, and yeah, absolutely. I think it's just something we need to do. We need to look at the young people, what they want, how we can attract them, and how we can support them and get as many of them in as possible to secure the future of RTBI at the end of the day.
I mean, you both talked there about relevance, and I think everybody that's in table believes that it is relevant, and it's as you know we've heard lots of people and lots of past national presidents talk about Roundtable being as relevant today as it always has been, and I think most of us agree with that. But the issue is always how do you get those people through the door, and does Roundtable look relevant? What are your views in terms of, does Roundtable look relevant to a 19, 20, 21-year-old and where they want to spend their time, or do we still have some way to go? So Pete, your turn to go first. What do you think about how do we get in the shop window of potential members?
Well, I mean, I would say, to be honest, the vast majority of it now, since you and the board and everybody else have done all this work with the membership drives and everything, and the workshops, the marketing, the social media, and things like that has improved drastically already. I think we can still improve further. I think a lot of people have already taken on board the idea of having a lot more fun social content on their social media, with rather than all the black tie, the traditional stuff. Yeah, I think we've gone a long way, but I think we can still do more. But yeah, I definitely think it is relevant. It just maybe continuing to improve, getting that message out to make sure that people know about us and know that it's relevant. So we're not sort of, for want of a better phrase, sort of hidden away, really, because I think we're still a bit of an unknown secret to a lot of people, which is a real shame. Because, like John said earlier, I think the gift of Roundtable is something that as many people should experience as possible, and likewise with Lady Circle. That's why I think I'd like to work with them a lot more than we currently do.
Great, John. Same question, just about what do you think? Do you think Roundtable looks relevant to those that haven't heard about it, and how do we get members through the door? Show them it's relevant.
I think for me, there's kind of two parts to this. I think if you look at the kind of the social media element of what we've seen at the moment, I think we've seen a real step change in terms of our communication being a lot more interruptional and actually making people stop and think, which I think has worked really well. Things like the Man Crush posts, some of the more out there stop and read this posts, I think have done wonderful work to actually get people talking and get people involved. But again, that probably has only been done in, say, half of the tables around the country. So I think that's the challenge at the moment is, and it's one that it's very difficult to resolve, because obviously of the way we are structured as an association, we have a group of clubs under a national body. So clubs are welcome to do what they wish. But I think from a national point of view, and then into some of our tables, we're portraying a really good message. Others I think could still do with some improvement. I think it's how we get them supported and get them into promoting what we know has been working. And I think there's some challenges there. Ultimately, I think in terms of our relevance and sort of where we need to hit as a market, if you look at our average age, which is around the 37-ish mark, and I think our average age of joining is around the 32 mark. So we need to be pitching ourselves at kind of that, say, 28 to 32 market is kind of where we're looking to pitch, because that's where the 28 to 35, say, because that's where the majority of our members are coming from at the moment. So I think it's coming down to kind of things like, what mediums are we using? Facebook is a good one. Instagram is still good. Is TikTok necessarily relevant for that generation of people? Possibly not. So I think it's actually, again, it's being smart about how we promote it. I think things like I think if we look at things like the rebrand has done really, really good for us. I think it's actually a very fresh and clean kind of launch of what we're doing. As you can see, I was commenting before this. I really like the branding on the t-shirts that you've got. So I think what we're doing is again, it's a step in the right direction. I think it's that execution piece and how we get in touch with those tables that maybe don't necessarily engage with some of the stuff that we do, and how we turn that communication into positivity and actually growth for those tables. So I think we've taken a really good step again this year. I think again it comes back to that. What are we going to do next year, and what are we going to do the year after, and how do we continue that momentum?
Great. I mean, continue. I mean, the brand, you know, the update to the brand this year has been a really positive step. I think, notwithstanding, I'm sure Rob Minown out there, incoming media officer, is going to say this is the wrong logo, and then I'm sure lots of people will tell me that the brand guidelines talk about not chopping the rondel, and it is the rondel chopped. But they are a set of guidelines ultimately that try and give tables the ability to position themselves in the right way. So just going back onto back to the question of the 3-year plan, and I'm sorry, I am going to talk about this a lot because obviously it was one of my key themes, and you're going to have to, whichever of you is lucky or unlucky enough to work with me as national president this last year, it's going to be a big theme for next year to try and bring some consistency. And it was always seen as a rolling 3-year plan, and you coming into your vice president year, a big driver is going to be, and a big motivation is going to be, how do you adopt, adapt, and improve that 3-year plan as we go forward? Where do you think are there gaps in that plan? Are there other things that we've missed? Are there key areas to focus on that maybe we're not quite ready to focus on next year, but where you see the big motivations and changes to that plan are going to be? So, John, we'll start with you.
Sorry, I was just checking I was unmuted. So, but yeah, thanks, Steve. I think the one thing that as I say, and I kind of called this out at the beginning, is we've done a great job in the tables that we have currently that are existing and have had really good growth this year. What I think we need to focus on alongside as a separate work stream is a real targeted expansion plan. Now, in terms of expansion is always a double-edged sword because it takes effort potentially away from existing tables that are trying to grow. And we have to acknowledge that if you have a table that's supporting another table to grow, then sometimes the efforts aren't always focused on another table. I think for me, it can be done, but it has to be done very cleverly. So what I would look at is more like a clustered approach. So where, for example, you've got two strong tables together, they both share some of that burden in chartering a new table that would be the third point on the triangle, as it were, and actually just kind of strategically picking the locations where we think we can support a table. And I'm not talking about us going back to the heydays of, thousands and thousands of tables up and down the country, because I don't think ultimately that is a sustainable and future plan. But I think for table as a success, I think if we can look at some really key locations and target those and then deliver a new table into those cities. I mean, we've seen some of the projects we've got going on at the moment, things like Wrexham, Ross-on-Wye, and also some of the other big city projects, like obviously Glasgow was ongoing, and I know there's a couple of others as well. If we can turn those into new tables and then look at it and go, right, so those are some opportunities, where's the next opportunity? And I think we've got a new member of staff who will support that success. But I think for me, that's probably one of our biggest challenges, because it's something we need to deliver, but it's something we need to deliver without taking impacts away from what our members are trying to achieve currently. And I think that's the balance we need to play off. So I think it's a very critical balance, that I'm very keen to push forward in the next 12 months, if I'm successful, to try and get some kind of growth projects in place so that we can have a successful kind of 2 or 3 years of, if we can open so many tables a year. I'm not going to put a number on it for now because that's just setting myself up. But if we can I'm not going to do it. So, but if we can open a number of tables every year continually for the next 3 or 4 years, and maintain the existing tables we've got, then that is a success, and that's what we have to look at.
Right, right. So, same question for you, Pete. Really, how are you going to supplement that 3-year plan, and what does that look like rolling into, I suppose, years 4 and 5, really, which will be part of your tenure and setting the ground rules for the next stage.
Yeah, well, like I said earlier, I think you've already done a great job so far and already hit some of those targets. So I think we need to add to it really and just keep pushing it forward. The main couple of ideas that I've had in terms of adding things to it. One, I would like to work with Ladies Circle and go to the NUS on a national level. Try and put a campaign out there that would filter down then into colleges and universities around the country. Obviously, I'd like to do it alongside Ladies Circle so that we don't get any sort of resistance from them in terms of just us being a single sex organisation. If we do it together, I think that would work a lot better. Hopefully, that would then create local relationships between tables around the country and their local universities and colleges, to reach out to students and get them involved, targeting sort of freshers fairs and things like that, and running events targeted at younger people. The other thing I would like to do, I probably would look in maybe in vice year to, if I'm successful, to roll it out as a bit of a pilot scheme, and then roll it out further nationwide, then hopefully in presidential year. But I would like to set up sort of a table twinning system where more established, bigger, successful tables would be paired with up and coming tables, newly rechartered tables who are struggling for membership, possibly, to sort of mentor them, reach out to them, check in every so often so that they've got that support network, and also encourage them to visit each other. So they've got that intertabling experience sort of beginning to be introduced into maybe tables who haven't had that before. And yeah, I think that would be a lot of help. But I think obviously I would look at getting volunteers for a pilot scheme version for the first year. I would speak to some of the bigger, more successful tables and reach out to some of the tables who may want support and ask them if we can partner them up and trial it and see how it goes. And then obviously learn from that, get feedback in terms of what works and what doesn't before rolling it out further then, hopefully. And I think that could really help. So obviously we want to build new tables as well. I've been helping Ross on Wye, who are looking to charter this summer. They've got a good number already. They're only half an hour drive from me. So I was up there with them beginning of this week, and they're a really good bunch of lads. I've also got another table in Caerphilly looking to recharter, which is in my area. But I think we need to really support the tables we've got already that are maybe struggling or just starting out as well, because we don't want to necessarily create lots and lots of new tables and then let the ones who are struggling or need support that we've already got, we don't want to let them slide. So I think we need to sort of be careful and make sure we do both of those things.
Right, thanks, Pete.
No problem.
I'm going to move, conscious we haven't got a massive amount of time. I'm going to move away from the 3-year plan, and you've both touched on the fact that due to a lot of hard work from the membership committee this year, who have put in, and I've seen it, and a lot of tablers have seen it with their own eyes, the amount of hard work and effort that they've put in to drive membership growth this year. And it's worked, and it's proven that Roundtable can grow and should grow. I think you've both been to membership workshops, John. I think you were in Basingstoke, Pete. You went to Swansea, didn't you?
Yes.
And they've been a great method of disseminating information to tablers with a blueprint that can work. How would you talk to those tables that haven't attended those, really? Because I think what we've seen, there has been some resistance from tablers that don't want to change. I think there's been some resistance to from tablers that see that we're trying to dictate to tablers how to run their tables, which isn't the intention. It's just a blueprint that works for those tables that have been struggling or those tables that have lost motivation and need new ideas to grow their table. How would you go out and talk to some of those tables that either haven't been to those workshops or haven't engaged or are getting the wrong end of the stick in terms of why those workshops are being run? Where are we? Sorry, Pete, you're due to go first this time.
Okay. First of all, yeah, I did go to the one in Swansea. It was a massive success. I can tell you that there were a couple of tablers there from Chepstow and Abergavenny who I was actually quite surprised to see there, if I'm honest. I was very happy to see them there because I thought they might have been some of those tables who may not have become involved, may not have engaged, but they have done really well with it since, and they've seen it give them a lot of success as well in terms of prospects and things like that. And so I've seen reluctant tables get involved and, you know, flourish with it. And I think every single table that has got involved and used these sort of marketing methods and things like that we talked about on the weekends and changed their programs, less business meetings, more socials, things like that. It has been a success for everyone who's done it. So I think I would just reach out. I would literally phone chairman and just say, look, this is what it actually is. Ask them what they actually think of it, and then just try and have an honest chat with them and dispel any myths or misconceptions that they've got, and just say, look, we're not trying to dictate to you. We're just trying to help you secure the future of your club and make sure that your club is still here in 10, 15, 20 years time when you age out. Because if, you know, a lot of these clubs, I would imagine, are probably old. They've got older members. They maybe haven't got many youngsters in. And I think they need to just be given a bit of a nudge and say, look, when you guys age out, what are you leaving behind and who are you leaving it for? Because at the end of the day, we're all responsible for making sure our clubs, our areas, and our TBI as a whole is there for the future and there for future tablers, because they deserve the same experiences that we've had.
Yeah, and I think that's a really important point, Pete. You know, and that's one of the things that we talked a lot about in the past. Is I think we have a duty as tablers to make sure that the next generation of tablers can have those same life-changing experiences that we've all had by being members. So yeah, John, same question for you, really, just in terms of the membership workshops and how we get those disengaged or disenfranchised tables to the table to start to think about how they can grow.
So I think first and foremost there's a conversation that needs to be had with these tables. I think from going to Basingstoke for the workshop back in October now, I think it was, there was a lot of tables who came there, and you could tell from the kind of the mood of the room when it first started, there was a lot that were kind of into the unknown as to what it was going to be and what it was going to be about. But once they were there and they embraced it and kind of took on board what was said, they've taken that back, and you can see the success and the strides that some of those tables have taken. So I think there is a communication element to this, and I think the one thing for me is it kind of links back to you know, why did you join Roundtable in the first place? Because our big motto is do more. Why would you join Roundtable in the first place? Group of friends, make a difference, do more. You can't knock the workshops until you've been to one and tried it, and that's the thing for me. Is we've had some early adoption, which has been great to see, and the success has been proven on that. I think that for the naysayers, I would say give it a go. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right for you. It doesn't necessarily mean it's right for your table, but you can go along and try it. Even if you take one thing away from that workshop that is a benefit, it might, it could make a massive difference to your table. And I think that's the most important thing. It's not that National are trying to dictate this to you. It is all about actually, here's some ideas. What, we can't, as a board, if you're on the national board, there's 10, 11 people. They are not going to know the situation in all 300 clubs up and down the country, and that's the fundamentals of this.
Yeah.
Here's some ideas of some success that has worked. Which of these ideas can we use in your table to help you grow your membership? Mm-hmm. And I think that is the big thing. It's a real go and try it. if you walk away with some ideas, it'd be great. As an example, two of the guys from London West End were there. They've come back with some ideas. We did grow our membership this year, so we've had a really strong year. But and we didn't adapt everything. We took some bits that would work for our situation. And I think that's the important bit. There's something for everybody in that workshop, and I would urge everybody next year, when you see if you've got the dates, try and get yourself along to one of the workshops, because it will be transformative in terms of some of the things and some of your ideas, and some of the things you might want to do in your table next year.
There was a question that came in from a tabler that attended one of the workshops, and it was around, obviously the workshops were there to give, as I said, tables a blueprint of something that does work, and it's proven to grow membership and continues to grow membership. And one of the questions came in is obviously there are certain tables that keep clinging to the image of black tie dinners and suited meetings, and I guess an old-fashioned approach, and too many ex-members and 41 Club members hanging about. And look, we tell people that those sorts of things are, while still can be a part of table, actually how you present yourself and have a balanced program and varied program and socials, and try to be a young man's organization. Or do you think the approach that we're taking at the moment is the right one, or should the national board and the president be taking a stronger approach and tackle those issues head on for the greater good of the organisation? John?
I think the way that we are set up, as I say, our setup is, and always has been, we're a group of clubs that unite under the Round Table banner. There are obviously some of those issues that I think we have discussed around the table. I joined the National Council in 2016, and they're still going around now, let's be honest. And if you put a room of 30 tablers together, you can guarantee you'll have generally half on one side of a debate and half on the other side of the debate. I think it's important to keep having those conversations, and I think supporting tables in the decisions that they choose to make, I think, is probably the most important part of this. And I think I've seen it this year. There's been, and I won't name names, but there's been tables who have had issues or have tried to make decisions with regards to honouring members and things like that. And I think, and have had to support. And I think that decision as part of the table and what they want to do has actually has made their table better. So I think, ultimately, I think all of that remains the club's decision, but I think as a national association, we have to support them within the rules of the national association. I think that's the important part, is we are a young man's club between the ages of 45, and I think we have to always remember that and keep that at the forefront of our mind, and remember that the members who are part of our association maintain that custodial relationship with their round tables, and supporting them through that is the most important part as a national board.
Right. Pete, same question for you.
Well, obviously, as John said, we can't really dictate, we can't force anybody to do anything. I think it is important, if we want to attract younger people into table, that we sort of cut back a bit on the drinking culture. Obviously, like with the social media and stuff, we've been trying to concentrate on the more fun stuff and push out some of the black tie photos and things like that. But I think really all we could do as national, apart from encourage people and show people that it works through the workshops and everything, is lead by example. Really, I think is the best way to do it. I know for instance, your President's Weekend next year is going to be very different to what President's Weekends have been before, with black ties and things. Yours is more of a music festival thing, if I'm remembering correctly. That sort of thing, really. And
tickets on sale soon, Pete.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be getting one. And things like that, really. Leading by example. Like, for instance, I know in Bournemouth, I think I said Blackpool, that was last year. In Bournemouth, I know they're sort of leaning away slightly from the traditional setup, the traditional black tie and things like that. I think that's what we need to do. Obviously, black tie has its place, but a lot of people join Roundtable because they want to get away, get out of the house after work. They want to relax. They don't want to have to necessarily go and put a suit on. They want to go. They want to be comfy. They want to go and do something fun. I'd say once in a while you've got a big anniversary charter, like my Newport table had our 95th recently. That's different. We had Chris Bush down. That's a special occasion. I don't think most of the time it's necessary. I think you want to give the impression that it's fun. It's something you can do to relax in your free time. You want to have fun. You want to get out, enjoy yourself. You don't want to have to necessarily be formal. A lot of people do that in work, and they want to get away from that in their free time. I know I do. Being a teacher, I don't want to go and wear a shirt and tie in my free time. I do that enough at work. So yeah, I think, like I said, we can't force anyone to do anything, but I think we need to lead by example from a national standpoint.
Do you think, and I'm going to ask a question from me really, Pete, rather than that have come in from others, because it's an interesting point you make. And do you think the role of the national board and in particular the president has changed from a almost guy that goes around as a figurehead of the organisation? And I for one don't see myself as a figurehead. I'd see myself as a guy that wants to work hard for the betterment of table. Do you think times have changed in terms of the expectation of a president going to charter dinners and toasting the king and things like that to one that needs to get out to grassroots tables to try and sort of make impactful change to tables directly and speak to members directly? Or do you think there is still a time and a place for a president to be going around the country and telling a few stories at charter dinners?
I mean, I think there is still a place for that. As I said, Chris came down to our 95th, but that was a big special occasion. I don't think that's necessarily something the president needs to be doing all the time. I think you've got the right idea, and it's something I would like to follow on with, really, in terms of getting out, getting involved. I would much rather go as a president, much rather go around and help at different charity events, different social events around the country, and get involved and get stuck in and lead by example, really, rather than just spend a whole year in a bow tie. I don't think that's, from getting to know you for the last year and a half or so, I don't think you want to spend your entire presidential year in a bow tie. I think really it is a case of getting out and leading by example, as I said, and engaging with everybody at grassroots level and making sure that everyone feels supported. I think maybe in the past it was more a case of, you have the pyramid, you have tablers at the bottom, then you have the sort of castle up on a hill in Marchese House where, the board, and it's just a distant concept that everyone's just says, oh yeah, no, the national board. We sort of pay our capitation and that's it. We don't really see anything. I think the time is coming. I think it's already started where the national boards can get more involved and get out. And like I said, with the 3-year plan, I think one of the main things I took from it was reaching out to people and getting stuck in and getting involved. And I think that's what you want to do, and that's what I'd like to do to work with you as well and follow on from.
And John, what do you think? Do you think times are changing and we really need to start to change how the governance and the sort of structure of Roundtable works in that respect? Oh, John, we might have.
I think we've gone through some considerable. Am I still here?
Yeah, you're back, John. Sorry, yeah, you just broke up for a second.
I'm back. Yeah, sorry, I wasn't sure if it was me or not. So I think if you look at where we were in sort of 5-6 years ago, I think we went through a phase of, as a national board, there was various issues around spending, where the money was being spent and what the value was. And obviously we've now gone back to we've changed that over the last 5 or 6 years into a very different culture within the national board and what's expected. I think it comes down to value ultimately. We have to remember, and I think the ultimate thing of all of this is whatever the national board do, whatever I do, if I'm successful, whatever you do, Steve, in your year, anything that we do is potentially spending members' money. And that's the crux of this, I think. Now, as a member, where would members rather see their money being spent? Would they rather see it being spent on the national president attending the black tie event and giving a speech, or would they rather be it spent on on the national president or one of the board visiting a table for a meeting, be it a business meeting, a social evening, something where they can actually understand what's going on in the table a lot better and support them and actually get some return for that money? And I think that's the fundamental of it. Is, for me, whatever the national board does is on a member's budget, and it's a members pound coin they're spending ultimately. And I think we have to always be reminded of that. And I think we always have to be making sure we do that in the best way. For me, I tend to agree with let's actually get to more table events, more table socials, more fundraising events to a certain degree. But even at a fundraising event, how much time do you actually get to spend with the table to understand what their actual issues are? I think it's striking a balance, because there will still be a place for those. But for me, I think the fundamental thing is actually getting out there, spending time with tablers, and trying to help them with whatever they need help with in their current situation. I think that's the most important part, and giving something back. We can all attend a black tie event, and we could all stand there and give a speech for 5 minutes on whichever round table or whatever event it may be. However, in terms of value return to the association, that returns much less value for me than potentially going to a struggling table which maybe has 2 or 3 members, to a new members night, or to an event where they're talking about how they're going to try and grow their round table, where you could potentially turn a club from 3 members into 7 members, or you could potentially, reinvigorate a club. I think that's the more important part for me. It's all about that value piece, and just trying to balance the tradition with what's required of an association.
And look, personally, it's really reassuring to hear you both say that, because I think I've been pretty vocal over the course of this year on my views on social media and in the surveys and reports, etc. So I think we've got to. It's imperative that we're all first and foremost roundtablers that like doing what we do as roundtablers, and this is about the board or the national council, the reps, whoever it is, going out and sharing those experiences and sharing information to make tables better that might be demotivated or be running out of ideas. So it's really, really good to hear from you both. Thanks. Just moving on, obviously another big part, and we've sort of touched on it in areas. Obviously, the membership survey that we ran this year, which was one of the key things that I wanted to do, because to try and make sure that we're delivering the will of the members. And I'm not going to lie, I thought it was going to be a struggle to get responses, and getting 1,100 responses, 40% of the membership responding, was way beyond, I think, the board's wildest dreams. Albeit it did mean I had to send out 900 badges, which I'm never doing ever again. It's been the bane of my life.
I was going to say it was definitely the badges, Steve.
Yeah, maybe that was the motivation. But look, we've got some great data there, and for those that have read the report, there's a huge amount of data for us to be able to focus on in terms of what members see as important within Roundtable. What do you think the real standouts from that report were? Were there things that surprised you? Were there things that seemed pretty obvious? What were the sort of standouts for you in that membership survey? John, I think it's your turn first.
Yeah, it is. Cheers, Steve. I think there were some not huge surprises, and some sort of the bigger surprises. I think the one that kind of resonated with me about actually where kind of reaffirmed my thoughts was around where people were joining from and how they found Roundtable. And it recommends, and it still shows the art of the invitation is still a very important part of that. I think that was really important to see, because whilst we banged on about social media tonight, and I know we've talked a lot about kind of how we approach that, I think there is still a massive part of the art of the invitation. And it's an old cliche, I know, but if everybody invites one member and turns them in and they join Roundtable, we double our membership in a year. And that's, that's you know, the crux of what we do is that invitation, that friendship and fellowship, and I think that's still very important. One of the interesting ones was around the age rule, which I'm not going to bang on too much about because we've talked far too long about the age rule. But I think it's nice to know that we affirm we're in the right kind of place with that. And I think, yeah, it actually just testament to kind of some of the good work that we're doing. I think a lot of it kind of affirmed our thoughts. A lot of it kind of piqued our interest. Some interesting points around kind of things like drinking culture as well, which I think we still need to look at, which is probably something that as our generation is a difficult conversation sometimes. But again, it goes back to that whole future-proofing piece that we were talking about earlier. You know, if you look at the current generation, that drinking culture just is not there anymore. And I think if we're going to appeal to that generation of future tabler, something we need to consider. And again, it's not necessarily what's right from a national perspective. We can obviously advise that, but obviously locally, tables will decide how they want to portray that. But I think it's something that we need to definitely consider as an association.
And Pete, same question for you, really. What real standout stats or findings, conclusions from the membership survey, and how we can sort of take that data and drive the association forward?
Well, to be honest, I think a lot of it, when I read through it, a lot of it seemed to reaffirm what we were thinking with your 3-year plan and the sort of things you've been pushing in terms of modernising it. People, there's quite a lower percentage, I think about 40%, something like that, of people that thought the chains were still relevant. So a lot of people are obviously thinking like a lot of the regalia and things like that and the black tie are, like I said, something that there is maybe still a place for, but needs to be cut back and maybe only on certain occasions wielded out. I think otherwise a lot of it was very positive. I think a lot of it reinforces, like I said, that we're doing the right things and we're on the right track, and that so many people have got such a positive experience out of being in table. And I think it's just really about continuing down that track that we're going on. So I think we're going the right way, and just how we can push that further and what else we can do to keep that momentum going and even go faster.
I think one thing that was really interesting from the survey, there was a lot of data there, and I think you two are going to come along to our strategy weekend next week and with the rest of the incoming board. And I think the one piece that was missed, or not missed, but not assessed as part of the membership survey, it was giving views, and a lot of those views will be coming from successful tables, less successful tables. And I think the next level of analysis for that membership survey is really to start to see the trends of the viewpoints, whether it's regalia or traditions or aims and objects, trying to assess those against which tables are delivering real success and which are not, because I think then that will show whether those, because what it doesn't do is it's just asking individual opinions rather than an assessment of what's working and what's not. So I think that's one of the key things. In terms of, I'm just looking at my lists. Going back to the sort of membership growth and moving away from that, sorry, the reality is we do continue to lose members each year. You know, that's just a fact of life. Clearly, age is the one thing that happens in Roundtable where you leave. But we also lose a lot of members that just leave the association. What do you think are some of the real sort of focuses that we need to look at in terms of retention of members? And we've got to not forget that we want to make sure that members stay within Roundtable. Pete?
I think obviously you do get people that leave unavoidably. They've got to move. They have kids, family things going on, you know, and that can't be helped. But I think there's a lot to be said for reaching out to people, regular check-ins, whether that's from your chairman or from somebody further up, from national, from region, wherever, just randomly checking in on your mates, making sure they're all right, making sure that they're getting the experience that they want to out of table. I don't think necessarily you can do that in a meeting or at a social. If you've got somebody who's not coming to socials or who's quiet in business meetings, they're not going to open up to you necessarily if they're struggling or not finding tables working for them. So if you reach out to them personally and just say, look, we'll have a chat, come and grab a cuppa or whatever, and just let's talk through it, I think a lot of those struggles can be avoided. And I think that's something that's easy to do. I try and check in with my own table members as much as I can, just keeping plates spinning, but it's just checking in, just saying how are you. It's not difficult to do. It's not rocket science. I think a lot of that will avoid some of the struggles that people maybe have within table. If you're struggling, you might not be able to speak up, and if you've got that chance to speak to somebody one-on-one who's just reaching out to you privately, then I think that can really help.
Right. And same to you, John, just in terms of how do we make sure that we can retain, we can make sure that we have a focus on retention of existing members.
So for me, I think the most important thing is to understand why they're leaving Roundtable. I think we do a great job about how we're going to get people in, and then obviously the retention within, like through the workshops and how the clubs are growing and trying to keep them in. But we never really conduct any kind of exit interviews or conversations around why people leave Roundtable now. And I think for me, that some of that will be personal reasons, some of that will be conflict within in table, which is quite a natural thing because it can happen sometimes, and someone might just be disgruntled with the table. But it's also trying to speak to these people who are, worthy to be a Roundtabler, which they've already been invited into our association to say, right, understand why, and if it's not working for them in their current clubs, is there an opportunity for us to potentially move them into another local club and retain their membership? You've got plenty there. As I say, we have wonderful tables up and down the country. Just because you may be disgruntled or it may not be working with your current table, you may be moving around the country for work, which happens. You could be living in London and then going to work in a completely different part of the country, and you might need to transfer tables in. I think we don't do a good enough job of making sure that we retain our members that we already have that are looking to leave. I think we retain our members within the association well, but retaining those who want to leave is somewhere where we fall down. And I think the other thing that I would say that we have on top of that is we have the Roundtable E-Club, which again offers Roundtable membership in a slightly different format, which our good friend Dan White is currently part of, and they've just chartered 2 new members this week, which is great to see. And I think we have options there to support these guys and keep them in Roundtable. I think we just need to leverage them now and actually make sure we use them. And it could be something as simple as a Google form as to, why did you leave Roundtable? Would you be interested in joining another table? Yes or no. And then from there, we've got a list of tablers who we can then contact personally and go, actually, guys, do you know what? You've got these table options near you. You've got the E-Club. Would any of these be of interest to you? We can put them in contact and then try and retain these members within the association, because it's hard. Sometimes it's hard enough to find new members, which we all had those challenges. But the fact that we're not doing enough to retain them sometimes is actually quite disappointing. I think something we probably need to address fairly sharply in the next 12 months.
Great. We're sort of running out of time, but if it's okay with you two, I'm just going to run over slightly because I think there's a couple of other questions, and apologies for those that have submitted questions that haven't got through. I've got a ton of questions. One thing that's a really topical issue at the moment is the national events. And I was lucky enough at last weekend to attend my first international event, and when we look internationally, the attendance at events is really strong. But yet we've struggled to reduce attendees at some of our, particularly the national conference, year on year. And whilst Bournemouth is going to be an absolute fantastic event, so please get yourself booked in, we are reducing the attendance. Yeah, if you compare that to the NSW this year, you know, we've got a load of attendees. What do you think the key challenges are? You know, how do we change it? How do we encourage tablers up and down the country to come to those national events? What do we do in terms of changing it to make sure we get people there and you know, meet new friends and old? John.
Cheers, Steve. I think for me, if you obviously, as I've talked about, obviously I've done a fair few international events in my time, and they're have a very different flavour to them sometimes. And I think as RTBI and obviously LCGBNI, because our conferences are joint, we've had some great events over the years. I think the model we have in terms of our pricing is correct, and I think it's actually I'll use the term market leading because that's probably the best way to describe it. But if you look at some of the prohibitive costs that we get at international events in terms of the structure and the way the payments are made, the way that we do it with having a ticket price and then the ability to book your own hotel as you wish, actually is the right way to go, because everyone has a different budget when it comes to their accommodation needs. Some people may live locally and want to stay at home, some may want to stay with friends. All of those things kind of factor into it. I think the one thing that we need to acknowledge is that as a country, there is still a cost of living crisis going on, and I think one of the main reasons for the success of the NSW tickets for 2024, I think 2024 was one of the direct debit, the smaller payments every month option. I appreciate there was an option for Bournemouth as well, which was 3 payments, which worked well as well also. But that, you know, regular £20 a month payment that NSW had was actually made it a lot more palatable for members than it does for, as an example, where you've then got to find £200 for a ticket and then another £200 for a hotel. Finding £20 a month also becomes a little bit more easier than looking for £200. So I think those are the main things for me. In terms of association, the other thing I was going to say as well on this point, and I was having this chat with somebody the other day at an AGM, and it's like, oh, well, we're not going to national. And I was like, so you do realise that you have an expensed place to get there for the AGM to attend, and then there's a great 2 days of events with tabling on top, and they weren't aware of the expenses. And I think we should be not publicised. Well, we have to publicise it. Everyone knows there's an expenses policy, and as long as you fall within line of that policy, then there is some funding there to support you attending the AGM, which is obviously the key part of the weekend. But I think actually, let's start talking to tablers and actually, even if you can't get someone to attend the whole weekend, come down for the AGM, have your say on the future of the association, and then if you want to stay around for one of the parties and you can do so, even better. I think those are the main things for me. It's financially is one of the biggest motivations. One last point. Sorry, I know I've gone over on this. There's also the thing about sometimes people are a little bit like, oh, it's a national event, I won't know anybody there. I attended my first national event 8 years ago now, I think it was, and I've made lifelong friends up and down the country, and I would have been in exactly the same position 8 years ago when I attended my first national event. Definitely do more. Definitely come along, say hello to some people. If you see me at the bar, I'll come buy you a beer and come down and have a great weekend in Bournemouth if you can.
And same question to you, Pete. Really, how do we encourage people to get along to those national events and experience all those things that we've talked about?
Well, I think I echo a couple of things John said. Really, like I said, some people are hesitant to go to bigger national events where they think they won't know anybody. But having been to a couple of international events now, a world meeting in Copenhagen, one in Holland, several national events now, it is true what they say. Every tabler is just a friend you haven't met yet, and because we're all like-minded people, you do beat people from all over, from India, South Africa, as well as, you know, internationally, but also all parts of the country, and you just get on because we're the same sort of people. We're all community minded. We're all, you know, positive, fun people, you know, and we want to be there to support each other and improve our association. So, in terms of coming to national events, I think making sure that message gets out there, just communicating these things better, as well as the expenses, things like that, and trying to make sure that not only are the events affordable with payment plans, things like that. I think that does work really well. I've got the payment plan going for NSW, looking forward to it, and making sure that people see the events are fun and they're worth the money. It's all very well saying it's affordable, but if somebody looks at it and goes, well, it's going to be a boring AGM and a black tie dinner, that's not really what I want to do, they're still not going to come. If you say, right, these are the amazing things we're going to have going on, you're going to get this, this, and this for your money, and maybe options, maybe publicize the options more, where, for instance, like international events, you get a lot of different packages where you can just turn up for the Saturday, or you can just turn up for part of it, or you can go for the whole weekend. I think a lot of people I've spoken to have sort of think that they have to go for the entire weekend, and they think it's a big couple of days out there. They maybe can't get off work on the Friday or whatever. They can't afford it. They can't get childcare for the whole weekend, whatever. Just publicising that more, that there is that option just to come on the Saturday. And also making sure that national events are moved around the country to make sure that they're accessible for everybody. You know, if everything's down south all the time, or wherever, it is difficult. I mean, I'm very glad to see that next year's conference is going to be in Cardiff. I think that's amazing. Which not only makes it easier for me to get all the Welsh tablers to come along. I mean, I can't help but picturing because I would then become president in Cardiff, and my home national AGM, which would be, you know, a massive privilege. But going off topic, sorry, slightly, I have a tendency to do that, as my pupils will tell you. Yeah, just making sure that they're relevant, they're fun, they're value for money, and everything's as communicated as well as possible.
Great. Okay, thanks. So look, last question really, because we have run over. Obviously linked to running big events. We're approaching our 100th year now within RTBI, and I think whoever's successful in this role will still be on the board, and the immediate past president, I think, in the 100th year. And obviously we're exploring holding the world meeting, and I think there's a general consensus that holding it in the home of Roundtable, the initial Roundtable, is the right thing to do. I guess two questions really. One, is it right for us to do that in terms of holding that world meeting in 2027 and bringing all international tablers to the UK or to RTBI? And secondly, how do you make sure that doesn't become a huge distraction for the momentum we've built up in terms of membership growth? So, Pete.
First of all, definitely. I mean, we should have it. I don't think it's even up for debate whether we should do it or not. If I'm honest, I think it just has to be. It's a massive opportunity for us to show what RTBI can do, how much we've improved and developed already, which will only add to that in the next 3 years. By the time it comes around, we have a massive opportunity to get tablers from all over the country to go to an international event without having to go overseas, just to see. And, you know, it will engage people who haven't been to big events before, haven't been to international events before, who will then, you know, after experience it, want to go to more. I know when I went to my first international event in Holland, I was like, right, that's it. This was amazing. When's the next one? When can I want to do as many of these as I possibly can, because it is like going on a trip for a weekend away with a couple of hundred mates. It's brilliant. And I think we've got the opportunity to do a really good job and put something amazing together. We've got so much to offer over here in terms of pre-tours and things like that that we can organise as well. We could get pre-tours in different parts of the country with different areas running them. We could, you know, there's nothing to stop us having a pre-tour up in Scotland, pre-tour over in Ireland, pre-tour in Wales, pre-tour up in Yorkshire somewhere, you know, and get different regions in different areas engaged in helping to run those things. I'm sure we get enough enthusiastic tablers who want to show off the amazing things that they've got in their area, because, you know, you go around to different parts of the UK and every part is so different. The culture's different, everything. And there's so much history and everything around the country. I think it would be a massive success. So definitely, yeah, I can't wait for it.
Pre-tour to Yorkshire, I definitely support that. And for those taking the mick out of my Yorkshire tea things, I'm a proud Yorkshireman, even if I do live in Essex. So I like the idea of a pre-tour to Yorkshire. So, John, same question for you. I suspect I know the answer as someone that's enjoyed a lot of international tabling.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to surprise you with some of this answer. I think, you know, I'm a hugely proud international tabler. I think for me, international tabling is a huge part of the tabling puzzle. I think, you know, we are the founding association. Ultimately, every association around the world has roots which come back, if you follow the ancestral tree, back to RTBI. And I think it would be wonderful to bring home the World Meeting in 2027 to celebrate that. And I am a big champion for international tabling, both in the UK and abroad. There's one thing I will caveat with this with, however, and it comes back to value. If we're going to put the event on, absolutely fine. I think it's the right thing to do, and we should be bidding for it. But we should only be doing it if it's going to be a break-even event and it's not going to cost our members significant money. And I think that's the caveat I put behind it. It can be done under that principle, but for those of you who are slightly old enough to remember the 90th, which was back in 2017, the association lost a significant amount of money on that event, and I would be keen to avoid repeats of that happening again, because we've stabilised our financial position. We are in a good place, but we shouldn't be using our members' money to underpin or fund a roundtable international event. It's an international event. The international members are coming for the event, and it should be run on the break-even budget. And I think that can be done and that can be achieved. It would be a great success, and it would be a wonderful event to host in the UK. In terms of the second part about it not being a distraction, I think the board have kind of established the parts of this already. It needs a completely separate committee. Almost, you need to have a convener, a secretary, a treasurer just for this project, which is then kind of underpinned and linked back to the board. It's a separate substructure that they manage the day-to-day under the guidance and approval of the national board. So we then, as an association, can report back on the progress of any bidding, any activity that may be taking place, but the board can focus on actually delivering the board business, while the World Meeting Group can focus on preparing and delivering what would no doubt be a wonderful event. And I think that would be my only caveat. It would be great to host the World Meeting here. We hosted CE 18 months ago now, I think it was, and that was a really good event in Nottingham. I think we've shown we can do it at that level with international tabling. I think we now just need to have the courage of our convictions and back what could be a wonderful thing for our association. And, you know, it's our centenary at the end of the day. You know, we should be marking it with some special events to show what Roundtable is all about, and having a World Meeting in the home of Roundtable is probably the best way to do that.
Great, thanks, John. So look, on that note, and apologies for those watching, and apologies for you guys that we've run over 15 minutes, and also I've got a ton of additional questions. We could be here all night. So thank you for your time. John and Pete, I'm just going to give you 30 seconds just to sum up really the message for members on why they should vote for you. So John, just literally 30 seconds.
Yeah, no worries. Gents, thanks for taking the time to watch the video today. Either you're watching it live or on Watchback. I genuinely believe that with my leadership, we can take Roundtable to new heights, make a positive impact in our communities and our members. And I think let's work together to deliver a brighter future for our clubs, our communities, and our members. And I think that is the most important thing, is working together as one board, council, tables. We are all tablers, and we're all working together to achieve that. So let's work together and deliver that.
Right. And Pete, your little pitch.
Well, yeah, thanks, guys. Really appreciate your time this evening. I think anyone that knows me knows I'm I think one of the most passionate tablers. I will do everything I can. I will still do everything I can, no matter what happens. In the last few years, I'm in table, but if given the chance, given the vote, I would put my all into it. I would be as much of a support as I possibly can to everybody around the country, and I know I could work well with you, Steve, to deliver on this 3-year plan and add more to it. And yeah, I hope I get a chance to do that. So, but whatever happens, whoever you vote for, I hope everybody does vote, because at the end of the day, everyone needs to have their say in how the table is run, because we're running it for our members, not for us. As you've mentioned before, it's not a pyramid with us at the top. If anything, it's a pyramid with us at the bottom at national level. The tablers day to day are the most important, and we are just there to help everybody and support everybody, not to rule over everybody. So yeah, that's me. Thank you, guys.
Great. So, John, Pete, thank you for taking the time tonight, and thank you for those that are either watching live or watching back on YouTube. So the election now will run through to the AGM. Those that were the table chairman over the course of the past year will be issued with the ballot paper virtually via Election Runner. And you will receive that. I think it will have already gone out now, given that we've overrun slightly in our technical difficulties at the start. So hopefully that's in inboxes. So please talk to your chairman for 23-24. So they will receive that. And as both John and Pete have said, please use your vote. This is super important. These guys have taken the time to go around the country and speak to tables. And please use your vote, and we will find out at the AGM in Bournemouth who is our next vice president. So thanks once again. If you do have any questions, either for John or Pete, please drop them a line. I know their phones are always on, and they're willing to answer any questions direct. Thank you, guys, and I hope to see as many of you as possible in Bournemouth on the